Hello everyone, welcome to SolveUnsolved. In this tutorial, we will discuss about one of the production deployment document, which is RPA release notes. We will see what is this RPA release note, why do we need it, and how do we draft it. So this tutorial is going to be a complete guide on this document. Now let's see what this release note is. Bot release note is a document which is drafted by the developer at the time of UAT, and it is used to capture all the details which is required for the bot deployment or even post deployment in the production. These documents come very handy for the support handover as it includes details such as the high level RPA process details and the prerequisite related to the bot, the system requirements in terms of what is the configuration or the minimum requirement of the system, and the server details, for example, the servers on which the bots are deployed, the bot triggers, the configuration file which is involved. So you can attach the actual copy of the config file, or you can give a reference to where it is stored, and the folder structure which is followed for this bot. The credential manager details, for example, what is the credential manager or any vault which is used like CyberArk. So those kind of details. The exception details, for example, what all are the exceptions which are managed by bot, and any details which you think of can be of help in production or post-production go live. So those details are captured in this release note. The input file format, which is expected for the successful bot run, the support and business contact information, which might be required in future for the bot run, and any additional reference documents or attachment you think of can be of help for the support people for the bot run. So this release note is a very important document which captures minute details of the bot, which is of a quite a bit help for the support personals. Now let's have a look onto how this production bot release notes look like and how do we draft it. This is a draft document just for a reference purpose, and this can be modified as and when required, or organization to organization. It can vary, but as a standard document, this is the bare minimum requirement which we are trying to capture and show here. So this release notes has in the first page here, you need to mention which process this release note for. And then the table of content, which suggests you the revision, like any standard documents, the revision history, the introduction, um, and the scope of the bot. For example, the revision history where you will capture what is the current version or the latest version which needs to be referred, when was this revised, and who updated it, and the remarks related to it. Then the introduction in sense of what is this document about, the scope of the process which for this document is drafted for, the prerequisite required for executing the bot. For example, if there has to be an input file which needs to be present for the bot to run, because that is a prerequisite, so that needs to be mentioned here. Similarly, if say example there is a date format which needs to be in a specific format, for example DDMMYYY, because this is a very much important information, and there are times when the system, actual production system of date format differs from the lower environment date format. So you need to call it out very clearly if there is any such prerequisite for the successful bot run. Although as a standard practice that it is suggested that we handle these kind of requirements in the bot, but just to ensure that there is no such discrepancies in the systems in the low environment versus the production, it's the best practice to mention all these details here. The third subpart is the system requirement, where you capture the software details as a bare minimum requirement for the successful bot execution. This is not only related to the software which is on the servers, but also related to the application. For example, if there is a SAP which is used or any other application, web application you think of is being used in the bot, then you need to mention the current version onto which the bot is developed. For example, if there is a web application on which you have done the development, and then 6 months down the line, there is there is upgrade which happens on that web application, then a least someone would know that, okay, there is a version change. And then if there is any issues, then it might be because of those version change. So this becomes important. But again, mentioning here, it is the best practice that you discuss this all beforehand at the time of bot uh, uh, discovery, that what is the frequency of the web application getting updated. And if there are APIs already available, then it's always the best route to use the APIs rather than going on to the UI or the custom uh, based automation. Next detail you capture is the hardware in terms of the servers, what kind is the minimum requirement for successful bot performance. Then we have fourth section which mention the server details. For example, what all servers are used for the bot deployment, which is the server on which the control room is deployed, the runner bot, the database, or any such thing you think of can be captured here in terms of servers. You need to mention it all here. This has details of development, UAT, and production, all the three environment onto which the development was done, UAT was performed, and production is to be done. So all these details is captured here along with the account, for example, the bot ID and the service accounts used for that bot. Next section which is captured here is bot trigger. For example, how bot can be triggered. So bot can be triggered in multiple ways. If this is an attendant bot, then there can be a shortcut which is on the uh, system or the desktop. You can double click on it, or you can do it from control room. If it is a scheduled bot, then the bot trigger mechanism. So whatever is the method a bot can be triggered on based on your use case, you need to mention it here. Next subpart is the folder structure, which captures what is the prerequisite or at least the main folder path onto which is of the must creation for the before the bot run. So once the bot execute, it will create all the subfolders, but then the master folder needs to be created. So if there is any such prerequisite, you need to mention it here. And then what all are the subfolders which will be created or are the prerequisite for the bot run, those folder specifications come here. Again, as a standard practice, the subbot, which is specific for creation of the folder structure that needs to be triggered, it is always suggested that it's not being done manually on the production servers, because production servers are not allowed to be touched for manually. And in this, there is no other options available. Next part is the configuration file, where you attach the config file which is used for the bot run, so that at no point of the time of bot run there is a confusion, or if there is any alteration or anything happens to the config file, at least this can be referred or can be copied and pasted there. So this comes very handy. Then the credential manager detail, for example, the user ID, the passwords, where it is stored, such kind of details needs to be captured here. Password certainly need not to be captured in this document as it has to be encrypted, but the details required at least he has to, or the references has to be mentioned here. For example, the user ID and password to log in the success factor is stored in the credential vault of automation anywhere. Similarly, it can be in CyberArk or any such other credential vault you need to mention here. Next subsection is the exception details, which captures all kind of exceptions. For example, any mandatory field is missing, so that needs to be called out. Any changes in the input file, or the input itself is invalid, it's not in the same format which is expected. Those kind of exceptions, known exceptions, are captured here. If there is unknown exceptions comes into picture, certainly it is unhandled exceptions, and that will be captured by the bot exception manager. But any known exceptions which one would have encountered or is aware that these are very common one and would be of help for the support personals, that should be captured in the exception details. Next subsection is the input file format. This is the template which is to be at least provided here for the reference, so that this as per the agreement with the operation, so that in future this file format is maintained and there is no discrepancies in the file format expected versus the provided one. Next subsection is the support contact information, so that in case the bot moves from development to production, at least the business persons know that or the support personnel knows that who's the business this bot is for, who are the RPA developers involved here, the COE testers who did the testing here, the RPA support team who need to be contacted in terms of any support required, and the level 1 support help desk. And the procedure, even if you have the procedure for it, that needs to be attached here. So this support contact information comes very handy for the users, the business users, as well as the production people. The last section is again, uh, it is the references where the bot can, or any details related to bot can be found. For example, if there is a bot demo, then you need to uh, uh, provide here the URL of that bot demo. If there is any BRD which needs to be referred, because certainly you cannot put all the details in one document. So the other related documents to the bot, those references should be provided in the reference document. And in addition to this references, even if you think that there are certain documents which, if referred, can be of help or might be required by the support personals or any of the user, you should ideally provide those references here. So this is a very detailed document, but still a very important one, which is suggested to be used and drafted well for the successful bot run in production. So, like we have seen, bot release note serves as a go-to document for bot users team in terms of referring the bot deployment prerequisite, the dependencies related to the bot, and any execution related information or the post-run support information which is required at any point given uh, at any point of the time post go live. So what next? In the next video, we'll discuss about the third production document, which is the bot inventory document. But till then, keep learning, keep growing, stay happy and stay healthy. Thank you, everyone.